Alan stood before the Coalition of Planets Council, surrounded by representatives from across the galaxy. The room was filled with tension. All eyes were on him as he gave his latest report. His message was clear. Tracking down Thrag remained his highest priority. The Viltrumite fugitive posed an incredible threat, especially now that it was confirmed he had fathered numerous children, each of them carrying the potential to be just as dangerous as he was. One of the council members, a stern-faced delegate known for her blunt proposals, brought up a controversial idea. She suggested that, since there was no significant biological difference between a pure-blood Viltrumite and a hybrid, perhaps it was time the Coalition initiated a controlled breeding program. She argued that Mark Grayson and his brother Oliver, both hybrids with proven strength, could be the first candidates. Her tone made it clear she viewed them less as individuals and more as assets to be used. The room grew quiet as her words settled in. Then, a deep voice broke the silence. A representative from the same species as the late Battle Beast stood in protest. He fiercely objected to the idea, calling it unethical and a step too far, even in wartime. Alan, though normally composed, began to show visible frustration. The delegate who made the proposal continued pressing her point, undeterred by the backlash, until finally, Alan raised his voice and shouted over her. The outburst brought the meeting to a halt. Offended and furious, the woman stormed out. When the session concluded, Alan returned to his office, visibly drained. The Battle Beast councilman followed him there briefly and expressed his appreciation for Alan's stance against the program. He also took a moment to reflect on the death of Battle Beast, acknowledging the loss, but adding that, according to an ancient prophecy from his world, another warrior with the same spirit and strength may one day rise again. Later, Alan met with Mark and Oliver to update them on Thrag's status, or lack thereof. Despite the Coalition's extensive efforts, Thrag still hadn't been located. The trail had gone cold. Alan tried to shift the mood, asking Mark how Eve and Tara were doing after their recent trip. Mark explained that while the vacation was supposed to be peaceful, it turned chaotic when they were forced to fight off a group of Thorgs who had become aggressive during their breeding season. Alan apologized for the ordeal, but Oliver's temper flared. He criticized Alan for not doing more and letting things get out of hand. Trying to ease the tension, Alan offered to take them all out to a movie, just a small break from the chaos. That evening, Mark and Eve brought Tara to the theater. As they waited outside, a ragged alien approached them. He reached out with his hand, pleading silently for help. Mark and Eve politely refused. A few moments later, another alien, looking more trusting, walked up and willingly accepted the mysterious alien's offer. Upon touching him, the beggar's form shimmered and instantly morphed into an exact copy of the newcomer, stealing his identity without a word. Mark, Eve, and Tara met up with Oliver and Haluma. Tension immediately flared between Mark and Haluma, and they exchanged brief, heated words. Eve, watching all of this unfold, voiced her concerns about having brought Tara along. It didn't feel safe, but Oliver insisted she would be fine and tried to reassure them both that the situation was under control. Meanwhile, on the remote world of Thraxa, Thrag stood before a group of his Thraxan mates. The time had come to move. He ordered them to prepare for transport, making it clear they couldn't remain there much longer, not with the Coalition closing in. As for the children, he allowed them to continue playing, if only for a short while. But soon, they too would have to leave. Before departing, Thrag thanked one of the Thraxan women for her loyalty and service, unaware that someone nearby was watching him from the shadows, an undercover Coalition spy hidden among his ranks, quietly recording every move. Back on Telescria, the ongoing light show proved to be too much for Tara. The noise and constant rumbling vibrations irritated her, and it quickly became clear she wasn't enjoying any part of the celebration. Eventually, everyone agreed it was best to wrap things up early and head home for the night. Meanwhile, Mark and Oliver took on a mission from Alan, who had tasked them with tracking down an illegal Canslock farm, an operation dealing in the slimy alien delicacy that Alan loved a little too much. As they made their way to the farm's location, Oliver joked about how long it had been since Mark was in real combat. hinting that maybe it was time for him to get back into the swing of things. Once they arrived, they didn't have much time to look around before a Rhinax creature lunged at them out of nowhere. The fight was intense, and though they managed to bring the beast down, the battle left their clothes pretty torn up in the process. Back at the house, Eve stayed behind to watch over Tara, who had finally fallen asleep. As things quieted down, she stepped out onto the balcony and caught sight of a strange animal vomiting near the railing. Disgusted, she muttered about how much she disliked life on Telescria, frustrated by its bizarre creatures and unpredictable environment. Later, Mark and Oliver returned to Alan to debrief. Alan thanked them for completing the mission and then dropped a major update. He now knew Thrag's location, and Space Racer was already keeping an eye on him. What Alan didn't realize, however, was that Thrag had already taken down several Coalition soldiers and now had his sights set on eliminating Space Racer next. In the quiet moments before Mark had to leave on another mission to track down Thrag, he and Eve sat together in their home on Telescria, sharing one of the rare calm mornings they had as a family. Eve had been struggling more than she liked to admit. Life on Telescria, with its strange customs, alien landscapes, and constant tension from Coalition politics, just didn't feel like home. She tried to adapt, but it wasn't easy, especially when everything around her reminded her how far she was from Earth. Mark listened carefully as she opened up. He could see the toll it was taking on her, and he offered a simple solution. He'd stay with Tara for the day, so Eve could get some time to herself, maybe even explore the planet at her own pace, free from responsibilities for just a little while. She hesitated at first, reluctant to leave her daughter behind, but Mark's sincerity reassured her. Tara would be in good hands. As father and daughter played together, Eve took the opportunity to venture out and see more of Telescria, hoping that by understanding the place better, it might start to feel more like a home. Later that evening, when the three of them were together again, cuddled up and enjoying a rare moment of peace, Mark brought up the idea of maybe finding a planet more like Earth, somewhere they could settle down without feeling so out of place. But Eve shook her head. As hard as it was, she wanted to try to make Telescria work. They had chosen to be here. Now she wanted to give it a real chance. They embraced one last time before morning came. Mark's departure now inevitable. At dawn, the coalition of planets mobilized. Ships buzzed with activity, and soldiers prepared for another push in the ongoing effort to locate Thrag. Mark stood ready, saying his goodbyes to Eve and Tara, his face a mask of determination. Even after everything he'd been through, the weight of leaving his family behind still pressed on him. Oliver arrived, full of energy and excitement. The younger Grayson seemed eager to prove himself once again, though Mark couldn't help but remind him, perhaps a little too sharply, about the time Thrag nearly killed him. Oliver waved off the concern, clearly irritated but also used to Mark's protective nature. Alan the alien took a moment to check in with Eve, offering his support if she needed help navigating life on Telescria in Mark's absence. It was a small gesture, but it meant a lot. Soon enough, the brothers launched with the rest of the Coalition fleet. As they soared through space, Mark couldn't shake a growing anxiety. Thrag was dangerous, yes, but now there were reports of his children, and the thought of them growing even stronger than him was hard to ignore. He shared his concern with Oliver, who dismissed it casually at first. But Mark made sure to say it out loud. He loved his brother, and he was scared of what they might face next. Their ship eventually reached a remote planet rumored to have ties to Thrag and his offspring. But when they arrived, everything felt off. The place looked abandoned. It was like nothing had ever lived there, let alone hidden fugitives from the Coalition. They scouted the area, eventually tracking down the informant who had been stationed there. But the news wasn't good. The spy had no idea where Thrag or Space Racer had gone. They were gone without a trace. Determined to keep searching, Mark followed a hunch and descended into a nearby cave while the others continued the sweep. Deep inside, he found something strange, an ethereal, blue entity pulsing faintly in the darkness. It didn't speak, but it seemed to be aware of his presence. Curiosity got the better of him, and Mark reached out. The moment his hand made contact, a blinding flash of light consumed everything. When he opened his eyes, the world had changed. He was standing in a familiar place, the same spot where he had been just before he first got his powers. Everything looked exactly as it had back then. Except now, he wasn't a teenager filled with questions and naivety. He was still Mark Grayson, with all the memories and experiences of his current life intact. It was as if time had been around him, pulling him back, but letting him keep everything he'd become. And he had no idea why. And that's the story, folks. Please, leave your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this one. See you next time.